So a couple of weeks ago, I stumbled upon what feels like a buggy behavior in Chrome in which the scrolling of an overflow container suddenly stops working. Now this is fairly easy to reproduce, and as I scroll this container, you'll see that I'm binding to both the scroll event and the wheel event, and these two should happen in lockstep while scrolling takes place. And of course, when I get to the bottom, what you'll see is that the wheel event continues to fire as I scroll down, but there's no scroll event. Now that's to be expected. What we don't expect is that if I were to scroll up for the wheel event to continue firing without the scroll, right? Because I got to the bottom and I start to scroll up. However, it's easy to reproduce a use case in which I scroll to the bottom and then look, I'm starting to scroll up and you can see that in the console, and now I'm going down and now I'm going back up. And even as I up and down the mouse wheel here, as you can see in the console logging, I'm getting no resultant scrolling in the overflow container. Now if I stop for a second, and now I try to scroll up again, it usually works, and there you go. Now, when I demonstrated this to Sean Roberts, who's the lead of our web performance team here at Envision, his theory was that once I hit the bottom of this overflow container, the browser is attempting to apply the scroll to the parent. In this case, it would be the body. So once the nested element runs out of scrolling content, it then tries to apply that to subsequent ancestors until it can't do it anymore, such that when I then start to scroll up again, Chrome is still trying to apply that up wheel event to the ancestor, the body in this case, and doesn't successfully apply it to the nested and what I consider to be the expected target of the scroll. Now, based on his theory, I had another theory, which is that what happens if we start listening for the wheel event on the overflow container, allow it to propagate with the default behavior when the overflow container has scrollability left in it. But if the overflow container can no longer be scrolled in a particular direction, let me cancel the default behavior of the wheel event and see if that prevents the browser from trying to apply the wheel event to one of the ancestor elements. So what we can see here is that I'm taking layout B, which is my second container here, which I haven't demonstrated yet. I'm binding to the wheel event on that container. I'm looking to see which direction the wheel is going in, whether it's going up or down. And then I'm checking to see if the given overflow container is already scrolled to the maximum of that particular direction. So if it's going up, is the overflow container scrolled to the top? And if it's going down, is the overflow container already scrolled to the bottom? If it is scrolled to a particular directional maximum, then I'm going to prevent the default behavior of that wheel event. Otherwise, I'm just going to let it through as is. So let's see if that works. So let me just clear the console here. So again, just demonstrating, it's pretty easy to reproduce this. You can see the wheel is going up and down in my control case. Now let's try and do the same thing in this container. So now I'm going to scroll down. You'll see here that it's telling me once it hits the bottom, it's preventing the wheel event default behavior. And if we jump back over into the code, you can see that's what we have right here. So I'm going to scroll down. Now I'm going to try and scroll up, scroll down, scroll up, scroll down, scroll up, scroll down, scroll up. And you see I can't prevent, or I can't reproduce the buggy behavior in Chrome when I cancel the wheel event when I no longer have scrollable content. So it's hard to prove that this works, right? It's hard to prove that I can't do something in the same way that I can't reproduce it every single time when it does happen. But what I can say is that there does seem to be a positive impact on this Chrome browser bug. Now, I don't know if you caught that in the hold on, where was it? There was a warning somewhere. Yeah. So one thing to be aware of is that if you attach event handlers to the wheel event, you're essentially adding processing overhead to the scrolling of the page itself, which can cause jank. Logging to the console is actually, I think, has a lot of overhead to it. So this is going to, just the demo itself is going to have a lot more jank than I think a production application would. But the point being that you have to weigh the pros and cons here. How much jank is there in the application by having the scroll event not work or not be applied to the correct element versus how much jank is there of the overhead of intercepting the wheel event itself. But again, you can see here that I have trouble reproducing. As I scroll down, I scroll up, it continues to work. Right? I can't reproduce it at all. And again, just going back to the control, if I scroll down and I scroll up, I can reproduce that almost immediately. So that's why I feel like this is a very positive influence on this particular bug. Now, because this only happens in Chrome, you'll see that I am using some browser reflection here to only apply this wheel interception to the Chrome browser. Now, in order to see if it's Chrome, and this is something I just happened to get off of Stack Overflow, I'm doing feature detection. So apparently the Chrome browser has a Chrome object attached to the window, and that Chrome object has a web store key associated with it. So essentially, if these objects exist, then I'm considering the browser to be Chrome, which seems to work in the current version of Chrome. Of course, who knows how future compatible this is. Anyway, again, this is not necessarily proof that this works, but there does seem to be a high correlation between the interception of the wheel event and not being able to reproduce the Chrome scrolling issues that I was seeing in our control case, which again you can see here is almost, I can pretty much reproduce it almost every time. So anyway, this is something I think I might be adding to an application where not scrolling in a particular element has a very noticeable impact on the user experience.